The sun spilled across midtown Manhattan like golden paint, brightening the gray of buildings and softening the rush of footsteps and horns. Amid the steady tide of suits and street vendors, a man sat hunched over on a worn bench near Bryant Park. His name was David Miller. His beard was thick, his coat tattered, but his eyes, those eyes held depth like the lingering echo of a piano note long after the music stopped. A passerby slowed near him. Not just any passerby, a man in simple white, without the elaborate robe or the crowds that usually followed him. He carried a gentle air, as if peace moved with him. "You hungry?" the man asked. David squinted, sizing him up. "Are you with the church?" The man chuckled. "Of sorts, I know a diner nearby, my treat." David hesitated, then stood. His legs complained, but his pride was silent. Free meals didn't happen often, at least not ones that came without strings. They walked side by side past taxis, glass towers, and people who never turned their heads. A papal security aide trailed discreetly behind, far enough to seem invisible. The diner smelled of bacon and coffee and fried hope. They took a booth in the back. The white-clad man ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup. David pointed to the cheapest combo on the menu. As they waited, David studied him. "You don't look like a priest." "I'm not a priest," the man said, stirring sugar into his tea. "Call me Leo." "Leo," David muttered. "Well, thanks, Leo. Not every day someone buys lunch for a nobody." Leo tilted his head. "You're not a nobody," David snorted. "Says the man in white who smells like clean prayers." Leo smiled at that. "You play music?" David blinked. "What?" "Your hands," Leo said, nodding toward the table. "They carry rhythm. Your fingers. They've danced." David looked down. Even dirty, even cracked, his hands remembered melodies. Used to, jazz pianist, clubs in the village, wedding gigs, studio backup. That was another life. "What happened?" Leo asked softly. David looked out the window. "Doesn't matter." A beat of silence passed. Leo folded his hands. "I'm not here to judge you, David." David's eyes narrowed. "How do you know my name?" "You told me," Leo said without blinking. "No, I didn't." Leo only smiled. Before David could press, their food arrived. The clatter of plates broke the tension. The warmth of the soup filled his chest like a memory. He hadn't tasted something this real in weeks. David finally asked, "So what's your deal?" "You just go around feeding vagrants." "Sometimes," Leo said. "Sometimes I talk to them. And what do you say?" "I ask what they remember most." David leaned back. "That's a weird question." Leo took a slow sip of tea. "Try it." David stared at his plate. "Okay. The night my wife and I danced in our apartment, just us, no music, she hummed while I twirled her." He blinked hard. Leo's eyes were gentle. "That's a good memory." David tried to wave it off. "She died 5 years ago. After that, everything went downhill." Leo nodded, saying nothing. For a moment, the noise of the diner faded. Only the soft clinking of cutlery, the hum of the fridge. "You ever lose someone?" David asked. Leo paused. "Yes." David tilted his head. "Who?" Leo's eyes met his. "Myself. Many times." And there in the quiet space between two strangers, something passed, something like understanding or maybe grace. David's spoon lingered above the bowl, then dipped again. The soup wasn't just warm, it was anchoring. Something about Leo made him uneasy, not in a threatening way, but like looking into a mirror and seeing a version of himself that had taken a very different path. "So you said you're not a priest," David began, his voice cautious. "But you talk like one." "I've been around them," Leo replied. David smirked. "You sound like you've been around a lot of people." "I try to listen." David leaned back, folding his arms. "Then listen to this." He looked down, gathering his thoughts. "I had a Steinway Grand," he started. "Top of the line. Lived with my wife Marianne in Queens. She was a school teacher. Smart, loved Coltrane. We'd go dancing on weekends, drink cheap wine, and dream big." Leo didn't interrupt. "I got gigs. Some nights $500 playing jazz at the Blue Note. Other nights nothing. It didn't matter. Marianne believed in me, then she got sick." His voice cracked. "Ovarian cancer. It was fast, too fast. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. After that, everything blurred." He rubbed his eyes. "Music didn't sound the same. I sold the piano to pay bills. Cancelled gigs. Friends stopped calling. One day I woke up and there was nothing left. Just noise." Leo nodded slowly. "You disappeared." "Yeah," David muttered. "I did." For a while, they ate in silence. David's story hung between them like the scent of old perfume, faint, but impossible to ignore. I tried shelters, David continued. Tried getting clean. But the streets, they don't forget. Once you're out here, you stop being a person. You become a shape people step around. Leo's voice was steady. But you're still here, that means something. David chuckled bitterly. Means I didn't die yet. No, Leo said. Means you didn't let the world erase you. That line made David stop chewing. He stared at Leo for a long second. You talk like someone who's lost things too. Leo set down his cup. I have. David raised an eyebrow. Family? Leo hesitated. A kind of family, yes. Church folks? Leo smiled faintly. Something like that. David shook his head. I don't get it. You sit here like you know everything about me. Why? I don't know everything, Leo said. I'm just listening. David tapped the table. So what's the point? You want to save my soul? Leo laughed, not mockingly, but warmly. I think your soul is doing just fine. It's your heart that's bruised. That caught David off guard. They fell quiet again. Then Leo, almost playfully, grabbed a napkin and a pen from the dispenser. He drew a musical staff, scribbled a few notes. What's that? David asked. Leo slid the napkin over. You tell me. David studied it. His brow furrowed. This is close to a melody I wrote once for Marianne. Would you play it again if you could? Leo asked. David didn't answer right away. I don't know if I remember it all. Start with one note, Leo said. The rest will come. David folded the napkin and slipped it into his pocket. It was the first thing he'd bothered to keep in months. Leo rose slowly, like the meal had satisfied something deeper than hunger. David watched him, questions gathering behind his lips but refusing to form. You walking away? David asked. Not yet, Leo said. We've still got coffee coming. David smiled despite himself. You're strange, Leo. Leo nodded. So are most worthwhile people. Steam curled from their mugs as the coffee arrived, rich and bitter, a familiar comfort in unfamiliar company. David sipped slowly as if trying to extend the moment, the warmth. Leo, still without rush, cradled his cup in both hands. You really listen, David said. Most people don't. Not anymore. Leo nodded. I try. People carry things. If no one helps them unpack, they live their lives under the weight. David leaned in, his voice lower. Let me ask you something. Do you ever doubt it? All of it, the faith, the mission, the prayers that seem to vanish. Leo met his gaze. Yes, often. That surprised David. You're not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to do a lot of things, Leo replied. David tilted his head. You ever get tired of pretending you've got answers? Leo stirred his coffee with a thin metal spoon. I don't pretend. I offer hope. But sometimes I feel like a lighthouse that can't see its own light. That line settled deep in David's chest. You're not just some priest, are you? Leo's silence was brief, deliberate. I'm Pope Leo XIV. David's expression didn't change at first. Then he laughed, short, unsure. Come on. Leo reached into his coat and placed a small, worn medallion on the table. Papal seal. No pomp, just quiet truth. David's laughter faded. Holy hell. You're serious. Leo nodded. David looked around, suddenly aware of the world again, of waitresses, customers, background noise. You've been sitting here talking to me like I was someone who mattered. You are. David blinked hard. You're the Pope. You're supposed to be, I don't know, unreachable, behind glass, surrounded by gold. I prefer diners, Leo said softly. David slumped back. Man, I called you strange. I questioned your faith. I told you my mess like you were just a man. Leo interrupted gently. And I am. David rubbed his temples. This is insane. Leo smiled. Not really. Insane would be letting you walk past without hearing your story. They sat in the stillness again, the truth between them now unhidden. David found his voice. So why me? Why not go talk to someone who can fix the world? You can't fix the world, Leo said. But you can reach one person, that's enough. David scoffed. I'm just a broken-down jazz player with no home and a napkin in his pocket. Leo tapped the table. Then be a broken-down jazz player who remembers how to make people feel something. You don't need to be whole to bring healing. David swallowed hard. Are you serious? I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. For a long time, David said nothing. He watched the light outside dim slightly as afternoon crept toward evening. The city pulsed, indifferent to the miracle happening in the corner of a diner booth. You ever feel like you're not the man people think you are? David asked suddenly. All the time, Leo replied. The world sees a robe, a title, but I still wake up some days wondering if I'm worthy of what they expect. David looked at him. Then how do you go on? Leo's answer came without pause. By choosing each day to love people more than I fear failing them. David's throat tightened. He looked down at the napkin again, edges crinkled, ink smudged slightly from his fingers. One more chance, Leo said quietly. That's all it ever takes. David nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. One more. 2 days passed before David stepped through the heavy doors of the shelter again. The smell was the same, industrial cleaner, warm starch, faint incense from the chapel upstairs. Memories surged. The last time he'd walked in, he was shivering, silent, and angry. Now he wasn't sure what he felt. David? A voice called gently. He turned to see Sister Eleanor, her face weathered with compassion. She'd offered him soup and a place to rest more than once. He never stayed, never trusted kindness that didn't come with a price. I didn't think I'd see you again, she said, walking toward him. Didn't think I'd come back, he admitted. She smiled. Something changed. Someone, he corrected. She nodded slowly, as if she understood more than she let on. That afternoon he helped serve meals in silence. He folded chairs after the community meeting. No one asked who he was or where he'd been. They just welcomed the extra hands. Later, in the rec room, a group of kids played with battered toys. One of them found an old keyboard tucked under a shelf. It doesn't work, the boy said. David knelt beside him. Let's see about that. With a few wipes and adjustments, he coaxed life from the keys. Tinny, uneven, but music nonetheless. His fingers hovered. Then, cautiously, he played. Just a few notes. Familiar ones. The melody on the napkin. Heads turned. The kids stopped playing and listened. One girl swayed unconsciously to the rhythm. David played a full phrase. The sound was imperfect, but his hands remembered. Can you teach us? One of them asked. He looked around. Smiles, curiosity, hope. I guess I can, he said softly. From then on, he came every day. Not to stay, but to give. He played. He taught. He listened. People began to notice. Someone posted a short video of him playing with the kids. A soft jazz improvisation. The caption read, Homeless pianist teaches music at shelter. Listen to the soul in his hands. It caught fire online. A journalist reached out. Then a jazz club. Then another. One afternoon, the owner of a popular venue in Harlem visited the shelter. I saw your video, the man said. That's talent you don't ignore. We want to give you a spot. Weekly gig. Pay. Promotion. Full comeback. David stared at him, stunned. Thank you, he said, voice thick. But I'm not who I used to be. The man frowned. You don't want the stage? David looked over at the children gathered around the keyboard, waiting for the next lesson. I have a stage, he said. It's smaller, but the audience, they really hear me. The man didn't press. That night, David sat alone with the keys, the napkin folded neatly beside him. He added new notes to the old ones, filling the gaps of memory with purpose. He was no longer the ghost of a jazz pianist. He was something else, a man rebuilding, not his career, but something deeper. And every time he played that melody, he thought of the man in white, of Leo, of the question he'd asked, what would you do with one more chance? This was the answer. 6 months later, David opened his mailbox at the shelter. Inside, tucked between donation flyers and paperwork, was a heavy envelope sealed with red wax, the Vatican crest. He stared at it, heart pounding. Inside, a note written in careful, flowing script. Dear David, I told you one note is all it takes. Thank you for reminding me that the music of faith often begins in silence. Leo. Beneath the note was a USB drive. Curious, David borrowed a laptop from Sister Eleanor and plugged it in. A single audio file, their conversation in the diner. Cleanly recorded, his voice raw and uncertain, Leo's voice steady and warm. He listened to the whole thing. Not as the man who spoke, but as someone hearing his own soul laid bare. At the end of the recording, Leo had added a quiet message. If this finds you, I hope your music is playing again, and I hope you remember, you never needed saving, just someone to remind you that you mattered. David closed the laptop and sat in silence for a long time. Weeks later, he stood before a small group of teens in the same shelter, now part of a formal program. Second note, a place for homeless youth to learn instruments, write songs, and speak their truth. He held up the napkin. This, he said, was the first thing I kept when I was still running. Someone gave me this when I didn't think I deserved anything. He didn't fix me. He just listened. And now I get to listen to you. The program grew. Donations came in, local artists volunteered, and every Thursday, David played a short set before class. Not for applause, for connection. He no longer slept in shelters. A volunteer couple offered him a room. He didn't seek fame or interviews, though a few found him anyway. Reporters asked about the day he had lunch with the Pope. David always said the same thing. It wasn't about who he was, it was about how he looked at me like I wasn't broken. Just paused. Eventually, the story went global, not because of Leo, though his name drew headlines. The heart of it was David, a man who rebuilt his life with a napkin, a melody, and a conversation. The Pope never made a public statement. He didn't need to. But at an interfaith summit the following year, Pope Leo XIV closed his speech with a simple line. Sometimes the most sacred place isn't a cathedral. It's a corner booth in a city diner where grace sits beside grief and says, "Tell me everything." David smiled when he heard about it. He'd already written a new song by then, one the kids helped name. One more chance. If this story moved you, subscribe now and share it with someone who needs hope. Stories like David's remind us that no one is too far gone and that sometimes the smallest gesture can change everything. And don't stop here. Click the video on your screen now to watch another story that will renew your faith in people.